The courtroom went dead silent when the HOA president leaned forward and smirked. "You're nobody," she spat, eyes locked directly on Judge Judy. A few people laughed nervously. Someone gasped. Judge Judy did not raise her voice. She did not react at all. She simply paused, reached for a folder on her desk, and asked one quiet question. The kind of question that doesn't just win arguments, it ends entire careers. The HOA president's smirk vanished instantly. His face turned pale. In that single moment, everyone in the courtroom realized he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. But what Judge Judy revealed inside that folder would change everything. But before we get into it, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom moments. The smirk lingered a second too long. It sat on the HOA president's face like a challenge, tilted and confident, as if the courtroom were just another board meeting he could dominate with volume and posture. He leaned forward in his chair, elbows wide, shoulders loose. A man entirely convinced he owned the room. The camera would have caught it then, the way Judge Judy did not move at all. No raised eyebrow, no sharp inhale, no reaction. The silence stretched, heavy and deliberate, until it became uncomfortable. Not awkward, dangerous. The kind of quiet that makes people shift in their seats because they can feel something forming just out of sight. Across the aisle, the homeowner stood rigid, fingers locked around a stack of papers that looked thinner than they should have been. Their eyes flicked once toward the judge, then back down. Hope, fear, and exhaustion all lived in that single glance. The HOA president mistook the quiet for weakness. He scoffed softly, the sound sharp in the stillness. "I mean, let's be honest," he said, spreading his hands like a politician addressing a crowd. "This is a small claims issue, minor, routine. I do this every week." His eyes slid back to Judge Judy, smug. "No offense, but you're nobody in how these communities actually work." A ripple passed through the gallery. Not loud, just enough. A few nervous laughs. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere near the back. Even the bailiff shifted his weight. Judge Judy let the moment sit. She looked at the man the way surgeons look at an X-ray, not with anger, but with assessment. Her hands rested flat on the desk, still, controlled. The kind of stillness that did not invite interruption. "You're the HOA president," she said finally, her voice calm, even. Not a question, a fact. "Yes," he replied quickly. Too quickly. "Elected, re-elected actually." She nodded once, then glanced down at the file in front of her. The movement was small, almost unnoticeable, but it shifted the room. Paper rustled softly as she turned a page. The homeowner swallowed. Judge Judy looked up again. "And you personally approved the fines against this homeowner?" The HOA president smiled wider. "That's correct. Standard procedure." No emotion crossed her face. No judgment. Yet. She leaned back slightly in her chair. "Standard," she repeated, tasting the word. The lights hummed overhead. Somewhere, a pen stopped scratching notes. Judge Judy closed the file halfway, her fingers resting on the edge as if weighing its contents without opening it further. "Then this should be very simple," she said. The HOA president nodded, confident again, settling deeper into his seat. Judge Judy's eyes locked on his. "Let's start with the first notice," she said calmly. "The original one, not the follow-ups, not the penalties." A pause. The HOA president's smile twitched, just barely. "For the record," she added, her tone unchanged, "I want the exact date and method of delivery." The room leaned forward as one, and for the first time since he walked in, the HOA president did not answer immediately. Confidence grows louder when it thinks it is untouchable. The pause that followed Judge Judy's question did not last long, not because the HOA president had found the answer, but because silence made him uncomfortable. He cleared his throat and leaned back again, reclaiming his posture as if posture itself were authority. "Of course," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Everything was done by the book. Notices sent, deadlines clear. If people choose not to read them, that's not my problem." He smiled toward the gallery this time, toward the cameras. Power, after all, loves an audience. Judge Judy let him talk. She always did when someone was busy revealing themselves. Her eyes stayed on him, steady and unreadable, while he expanded his explanation into something performative. He spoke of community standards and shared responsibility, his words polished from repetition. This was not his first time justifying himself. It was simply the first time he was doing it somewhere he did not control. The homeowner stood quietly beside the podium, shoulders tight. Their fingers tightened around the papers again, knuckles whitening as the HOA president's voice filled the room. Each sentence sounded rehearsed. Each pause felt intentional. "We can't make exceptions," he continued. "That's how chaos starts. You give one person a pass, suddenly everyone thinks rules are optional." Judge Judy tilted her head slightly. Not in agreement, in curiosity. "And when did you decide exceptions were impossible?" she asked. The question landed softly, but it landed. The HOA president blinked, then laughed once. "That's not how HOAs work, Judge. With respect." A few people shifted again. The word respect hung awkwardly in the air. Judge Judy did not rise to it. "I'm asking when," she repeated calmly. "Not why." He hesitated, just long enough to notice himself hesitating. "From the beginning," he said finally. "Since I took office." The homeowner exhaled sharply without realizing it. Judge Judy turned her attention to them for the first time. "You tried to talk to them?" she asked. "Yes," the homeowner said quietly. Their voice was thin but steady. "I emailed, I called, I even showed up to a meeting." "And?" Judge Judy prompted. "They told me to submit a form," the homeowner said. "I did. Twice. Then the fines doubled." The HOA president scoffed. "Because deadlines were missed." Judge Judy raised one finger, not to silence him, but to pause the moment. "You'll have time," she said evenly. "Right now, I'm listening." The homeowner swallowed. Every letter sounded like a threat. Lien, penalties, late fees. I was scared to open my mailbox. The courtroom absorbed that. Fear had a sound, and it was quieter than arrogance. Judge Judy nodded once, acknowledging the weight of it, then turned back to the HOA president. "You hear that?" He shrugged. "People get emotional when money is involved." "People get emotional," Judge Judy replied, "when power forgets it's dealing with humans." A murmur rolled through the gallery. The HOA president leaned forward again, irritation slipping through the cracks of confidence. "With all due respect, Judge, this isn't a morality play. It's compliance." Judge Judy looked down at the file again, then back up. "Compliance," she said thoughtfully. She flipped the file open. "Let's see how consistent you were," she added. The HOA president's jaw tightened, because suddenly the audience was no longer watching him perform. They were watching him be examined. Rules sound clean, until you hear who they hurt. The HOA president straightened as Judge Judy began turning pages, the soft flutter of paper cutting through the courtroom like a warning. He watched her eyes move line by line, his confidence still intact but no longer relaxed. This was his territory after all. Paperwork, procedure, authority inked in black and white. "These are the bylaws," he said before she asked, tapping his own copy with a manicured finger. "Clear, transparent, approved by the board. Everyone gets the same treatment." Judge Judy did not look up. "Everyone," she repeated, still reading. "Yes," he said firmly. "That's the point." She finally raised her eyes. "Then you won't mind explaining why the first notice carries a penalty instead of a warning?" The question landed with precision. The HOA president smiled again, but this time it did not reach his eyes. "Because compliance only works when there are consequences." Judge Judy leaned back slightly. "Consequences," she echoed. "Not conversation." He shrugged. "We're not babysitters. These are adults who agreed to rules when they bought their homes." The homeowner shifted, the movement small but visible. Judge Judy noticed. "You agreed to the rules?" she asked the homeowner. "Yes," they said. "But I didn't agree to be punished without being heard." The HOA president let out a sharp breath through his nose. "There was a process." Judge Judy held up a hand. I'll decide that. She turned back to the file. According to this, the violation involved exterior maintenance. The homeowner nodded. My fence, they said quietly. It was damaged during a storm. And how long after the storm did the first fine arrive? Judge Judy asked. 6 days, the homeowner answered, before I could even get an estimate. Judge Judy's pen stopped moving. 6 days, she repeated, then looked at the HOA president. That's your idea of reasonable? We don't track weather excuses, he replied. If we start doing that, where does it end? Usually, Judge Judy said calmly, it ends with common sense. A few people in the gallery nodded instinctively. The HOA president stiffened. With respect, Judge, common sense is subjective. Rules aren't. Judge Judy's gaze sharpened. Rules without discretion become weapons. The word hung there. Weapons. She flipped another page. You escalated the fine within 2 weeks. Yes. No phone call? No. No site visit? No. No warning? No, he said, louder now, because that's not the policy. The homeowner's shoulders slumped slightly, as if that single word had confirmed everything they already feared. Judge Judy closed the file slowly, deliberately. Policies exist to serve people, she said, not to replace judgment. The HOA president leaned forward, irritation seeping through his voice. If we start bending rules, we lose control. Judge Judy met his stare. Control over what? Silence followed. Not empty, heavy. She opened the file again, this time with intent. Let's look at how often you showed mercy, she said quietly. The HOA president blinked. Mercy? Judge Judy did not look up. Yes, she said, because according to this, you never did. She turned the page. And somewhere between the rustle of paper and the tightening of his jaw, the courtroom felt it. The shift. Because rules had kept him powerful. But mercy was about to expose him. Paper never lies. People do. Judge Judy did not announce what she was looking for. She simply kept turning pages, slower now, as if each sheet carried weight beyond ink. The HOA president watched her hands instead of her face, his confidence still present but stretched thin, like a smile held too long. These are the notices you sent, she said at last, tapping the file lightly. Copies, of course. Standard record keeping, he replied quickly. We keep everything. Judge Judy glanced up. Everything? Yes. The word came out too fast. She looked back down, then reached into the folder again, this time not for a page, but for a smaller stack clipped neatly together. Different paper, different formatting. These, she said calmly, appear to be originals. The HOA president's brow furrowed. I'm not sure what you mean. Judge Judy slid one document forward, angling it so the gallery could not see. But he could. This notice, she continued, is dated March 3rd. He nodded. Correct. She lifted another sheet. This follow-up is dated March 10th. Yes. And yet, she said, laying them side by side, your summary states the initial notice went out on February 24th. The room stilled. That's a clerical issue, the HOA president said quickly. A typo. Judge Judy did not argue. She simply reached for another page. And this one? She asked. Also marked February 24th. Different violation. Same homeowner. The homeowner's head snapped up. The HOA president's mouth opened, then closed. Judge Judy finally looked directly at him. You issued 2 violations on the same date, she said evenly, for 2 separate issues that occurred weeks apart. He shifted in his seat. Our system batches notices. Your system, Judge Judy replied, or your summaries. A murmur rippled through the gallery, not loud, unsettled. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. Because what I'm seeing, she continued, is that the dates on these summaries do not match the timestamps on the originals. She paused. That tells me one of 2 things, she said. Either your record keeping is careless or it's selective. The HOA president laughed nervously. Judge, with respect, this is administrative noise. The fines are valid regardless of date. Judge Judy's eyes hardened. Dates matter, she said, especially when penalties escalate based on timing. She turned to the homeowner. Did you receive 2 notices on the same day? No, the homeowner said immediately. They came weeks apart. Judge Judy nodded once. Then she did something small, but devastating. She slid the file back toward the HOA president. Show me the original delivery confirmations, she said calmly. Certified mail receipts, email timestamps, anything that proves when these notices were actually sent. Silence. The HOA president stared at the folder as if it had betrayed him. We don't keep those indefinitely, he said. Judge Judy tilted her head. Indefinitely? She repeated. This case is less than a year old. He swallowed. The system overwrites. Judge Judy closed the file with a soft thud. No, she said quietly, it doesn't. The room felt colder. Because if this were an honest mistake, she continued, your dates would be messy, inconsistent, random. She leaned back, her voice still controlled. But these are clean. Too clean. Perfectly aligned to justify penalties. The HOA president's smirk was gone now, replaced by something tighter, smaller. Judge Judy looked at him steadily. This isn't a clerical error, she said. She paused, letting the truth breathe. It's a pattern, she finished. And in that moment, everyone understood. The case was no longer about fines. It was about what he had changed, and why. When arrogance senses danger, it does not retreat. It tightens its grip. The HOA president straightened in his chair, shoulders squaring as if posture alone could pull control back into his hands. His voice when he spoke again was louder now, firmer, carrying the sharp edge of someone trying to reclaim ground. This is getting blown out of proportion, he said. Dates, paperwork, none of that changes the violations. Judge Judy did not interrupt. She simply watched him, the way one watches a door slowly closing. You're focusing on technicalities, he continued, warming to his own defense. The homeowner was non-compliant. That's the issue. Judge Judy finally looked down at the file again. Technicalities, she repeated. That's an interesting word for facts. The homeowner stood silently, eyes moving between them. The tension in their shoulders had not eased, but something else had appeared beneath it. Cautious hope. Judge Judy turned toward them. You tried to fix the fence? She asked. Yes, the homeowner said. I got estimates. I even sent pictures to the HOA. And what response did you receive? Judge Judy asked. The homeowner hesitated. Another fine. A ripple of disbelief moved through the gallery. The HOA president scoffed. Because pictures don't resolve violations. No, Judge Judy said calmly, but communication sometimes does. She flipped another page. You escalated from a $50 fine to $500 in less than a month. That's the schedule, he snapped. Progressive enforcement. Judge Judy's eyes lifted slowly. Progressive, she said. Yet there's no record of progress checks. He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped himself. The burden is on the homeowner, he said instead. That's how HOAs function. Judge Judy leaned forward just slightly. No, she replied. That's how power excuses itself. The words landed heavier than any raised voice could have. The HOA president shifted again, irritation now visible. Judge, with respect, you're applying emotion to a legal structure. She did not blink. And you removed humanity from it. Silence followed. Thick, unavoidable. Judge Judy turned another page. What strikes me, she continued, is how quickly you escalate, but how slowly you respond. She tapped the file once. Multiple unanswered emails, missed meetings, appeals acknowledged but never reviewed. The homeowner nodded faintly, as if seeing their experience finally reflected back to them. The HOA president's jaw tightened. We're volunteers, he said defensively. We can't hold hands. Judge Judy's voice remained even. Then you shouldn't hold power. You don't have time to wield responsibly, the gallery murmured. Not agreement, recognition. The HOA president leaned forward now, frustration spilling into his tone. This is becoming personal. Judge Judy met his gaze. It became personal the moment you stopped listening. She closed the file halfway again, fingers resting on the edge like a warning. You enforced without discretion, she said. You punished without dialogue. He shook his head. I followed procedure. Judge Judy paused. And when procedure hurts someone unjustly, she asked, who's responsible? The HOA president did not answer. Because for the first time, control was no longer something he could assert. It was something he was being asked to explain. Judge Judy glanced back down at the file, and then at something else inside it. Something he had not mentioned. Let's talk about consistency, she said quietly. And just like that, the room leaned forward again, because whatever came next was going to prove whether this was a mistake or something far worse. One complaint can be dismissed. Several begin to look like design. Judge Judy did not raise her voice when she spoke again. She did not need to. The room was already leaning toward her words, waiting. You keep using the word standard, she said calmly. So let's test how standard this really is. She reached into the folder once more and removed a thin stack of papers, thinner than the rest, but heavier in implication. She did not announce what they were. She simply placed them beside the file already open. The HOA president's eyes flicked to the stack, then away. These, Judge Judy continued, are complaints submitted to your HOA over the past 18 months. The homeowner inhaled sharply. Complaints, the HOA president said, forcing a chuckle. We get plenty. Comes with the job. I'm sure, Judge Judy replied. What interests me is not that you received them. She slid one page forward. It's what you did after. Silence pressed in. She looked up at the homeowner. Do you recognize these names? The homeowner leaned forward slightly, squinting. Yes, they said softly. They're my neighbors. Judge Judy nodded. Neighbors who reported similar experiences, escalating fines, no responses, appeals unanswered. The HOA president shifted again. Coincidence, he said quickly. Difficult residents tend to band together. Judge Judy's gaze hardened. These residents don't live next to each other, she said. They don't share violations, and yet their timelines match almost perfectly. She tapped the stack. Same delays, same escalation curve, same language in notices. The room murmured, not loudly but unmistakably. That's because we use templates, the HOA president snapped. Efficiency isn't a crime. No, Judge Judy replied, but selective efficiency can be. She flipped one page over. Each of these homeowners challenged a decision, she continued, and each one saw penalties increase shortly afterward. The homeowner's grip tightened on their papers. The HOA president shook his head. You're implying retaliation. I'm observing correlation, Judge Judy said evenly. You're the one drawing conclusions. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped himself. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. How many fines did you personally approve last year? The question landed hard. I don't have that number, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Ballpark. He hesitated. Several hundred. The gallery reacted, a low sound of disbelief. And how many warnings? Judge Judy asked. Another pause. I'd have to check. Judge Judy nodded slowly. That's what I thought. She turned to the homeowner again. Did you ever feel like pushing back made things worse? The homeowner did not hesitate this time. Yes, they said. Every time I asked a question, the fines got higher. Judge Judy let that settle. Then she looked back at the HOA president. That's not enforcement, she said quietly. That's intimidation. His jaw clenched. We can't reward resistance. Judge Judy's voice sharpened just slightly. You punished it. The silence that followed was not awkward anymore. It was accusatory. Judge Judy gathered the papers and aligned them neatly. A mistake happens once, she said. A pattern repeats. She met his eyes. And patterns tell the truth people don't want to say out loud. The HOA president leaned back, arms crossing defensively. The confidence was still there, but thinner now. Brittle. Judge Judy glanced down at the file again, then at the stack of complaints beside it. "Before we go any further," she said, "there's something you need to understand." She paused. "This courtroom doesn't punish mistakes," she said calmly. "It exposes intent." She turned the page, and somewhere between the rustle of paper and the tightening of his breath, the HOA president realized this was no longer about defending policy. It was about surviving what the pattern was about to reveal. If you were sitting in that courtroom right now, what would you be thinking? Enforcement or abuse of power? Take a moment and decide. Confidence rarely disappears all at once. It fractures. The HOA president sat back in his chair, arms crossed tightly now, as if folding himself inward might hold something together. The confident lean was gone. In its place was tension, visible in the rigid line of his shoulders, the way his jaw flexed every few seconds. Judge Judy noticed all of it. "You've said this isn't personal," she said calmly. "That it's policy." He nodded quickly. "Exactly. So, let's remove emotion entirely," she replied. "Let's talk numbers." She lifted the file again, but this time she did not open it. She held it, resting against the desk like a weight waiting to drop. "You fined this homeowner over $3,000 in under 4 months," she said. "Late fees included." "That's not unusual," he shot back. "That's cumulative." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed just slightly. "Unusual compared to what?" He hesitated. "Other violations." "Which ones?" she pressed. Silence. The homeowner glanced toward him, then back to the judge. Judge Judy turned the file toward herself and opened it again. "Here's a breakdown of comparable cases," she said. "Same HOA, same time period." She paused, letting the sound of the page turning echo. "Most homeowners received 1 fine," she continued. "Some received 2, a few got warnings." She looked up. "Only 1 escalated this fast." The HOA president leaned forward, irritation flaring. Because this homeowner was uncooperative. Judge Judy tilted her head. "Uncooperative," she repeated, "or unwilling to be silent." His mouth opened, then closed. The room felt tighter now, like air running out. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. "You know what interests me most?" she asked. "It's not the fines." He scoffed weakly. "Then what?" "The timing," she said. She slid a single document forward. "Your escalation happened 2 days after this email." The HOA president's eyes dropped, just for a fraction of a second. Judge Judy read aloud. "I believe these fines are unfair and would like to formally appeal." The homeowner's shoulders stiffened. Judge Judy looked up. "That's not defiance," she said. "That's participation." The HOA president's voice sharpened. "It's disruption. HOAs don't function if everyone questions authority." "There it is," Judge Judy replied quietly. He blinked. "What?" "The truth," she said. "Not about rules, about control." A murmur spread through the gallery. The HOA president laughed once, brittle and humorless. "So now I'm some kind of villain?" Judge Judy did not smile. "No," she said. "You're human." He scoffed again. Funny way of showing it. Judge Judy's voice remained steady. "Humans get defensive when power is challenged," she said. "They confuse obedience with respect." The homeowner swallowed hard. The HOA president leaned forward now, voice raised despite himself. "People like you don't understand what it takes to keep order." Judge Judy met his gaze. "People like me," she said, "understand exactly what happens when order forgets compassion." The words cut clean. The HOA president exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. For the first time, the performance slipped completely. No smirk, no polish, just frustration. "You think this is easy?" he snapped. "You think anyone thanks you for this job?" Judge Judy paused. The silence stretched. Not judgmental, but revealing. "No," she said softly. "They thank you when you do it right." His eyes flickered. Something unguarded crossed his face, resentment, maybe fear. Judge Judy closed the file again. "You didn't lose control today," she said. "You revealed how you use it." The HOA president looked away, and in that moment, the courtroom understood something crucial. The mask hadn't fallen because of evidence. It slipped because the truth had nowhere left to hide. Judge Judy glanced down at the folder one more time, at the section he had avoided this entire hearing. "Now," she said quietly, "let's talk about what you didn't disclose." And the room braced itself, because whatever came next was going to flip the power completely. The folder opened. Not fast, not dramatic, just enough for the sound of paper to whisper across the desk, and for the room to realize something irreversible was about to happen. Judge Judy did not look at the HOA president when she spoke next. She looked down, scanning a page he clearly did not expect her to have. "You submitted your disclosures," she said calmly. "What you chose to include, what you chose not to." The HOA president straightened. "I disclosed everything relevant." Judge Judy's pen stopped. She reached deeper into the folder and removed a document printed on heavier paper. Official. Letterhead crisp. The kind of paper people only notice when it matters. "This," she said, lifting it slightly, "was not disclosed." The HOA president's face drained of color. Judge Judy read the header aloud, each word measured. "Notice of prior complaint. Internal review. Findings substantiated." A sharp inhale cut through the gallery. The homeowner froze. Judge Judy looked up now, directly at him. "You were formally warned," she said, 6 months before this case." The HOA president shook his head instinctively. That was unrelated. Judge Judy turned the page. "Retaliatory enforcement," she continued. "Failure to follow appeal procedures. Pattern of punitive escalation." She paused. "Sound familiar?" The courtroom was no longer murmuring. It was silent in the way rooms get when everyone realizes they are witnessing a collapse. "That review resulted in mandatory oversight," Judge Judy said, "and you signed the acknowledgement." The HOA president's mouth opened. No sound came out. Judge Judy slid the document forward. "That signature," she said, tapping the page, "is yours." He stared at it. Too long. "I didn't think," he began. "No," Judge Judy interrupted gently. "You didn't disclose." The power shifted in that instant. Not loudly, not violently, but completely. "You stood here today," she continued, "portraying this as routine enforcement, as isolated frustration." She closed the folder. It wasn't. The HOA president leaned forward, panic leaking into his voice. "That review didn't result in penalties." Judge Judy's eyes were steady. "Because you promised corrective action." She let the words settle. "Instead, you escalated." The homeowner's breath hitched. Understanding washed over their face. Not relief yet, but clarity. Judge Judy folded her hands. "You were not just enforcing rules," she said. "You were daring someone to challenge you after you'd already been warned." The HOA president shook his head again, faster now. "You don't understand the pressure." Judge Judy raised one finger. Not to silence him, to end the illusion. "I understand accountability," she said. The room felt different now. The air thinner, sharper. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. "This case is no longer about whether fines were justified," she said. "It's about whether authority was abused after oversight failed." The HOA president swallowed hard. His shoulders slumped, the last remnants of performance gone. Judge Judy looked at the homeowner. "You didn't walk into a system," she said. "You walked into a pattern that had already been flagged." She turned back to him. "And you thought no one would connect the dots." The silence that followed was not suspenseful anymore. It was damning. Judge Judy picked up her pen again. "There will be consequences beyond today," she said calmly. "Not because you lost control." She met his eyes. "But because you were warned and chose to ignore it." The HOA president stared down at the desk, breathing shallow, exposed in a way arrogance never prepares for. The power had flipped, and everyone in the courtroom knew it. Because from this point on, he was no longer defending his authority. He was answering for it. The room felt smaller now, like the walls had leaned in to listen. The HOA president sat motionless, eyes fixed on the desk in front of him. Not defiant anymore. Not performative. The posture that once filled space had collapsed inward, shoulders drawn tight as if bracing against something invisible. Judge Judy did not rush the moment. She allowed the silence to stretch, because silence had become the most honest thing in the room. "You've been very clear today," she said finally, her voice steady, unraised. "Clear about rules, clear about authority, clear about how you see your role." The HOA president nodded faintly, not trusting himself to speak yet. "What you have not been clear about," she continued, "is who checks that power when it goes too far." He swallowed. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. "You mentioned a board," she said. "Who approved your enforcement decisions?" He hesitated. "I did," he admitted, "within my discretion." "So the board didn't review individual escalations?" she asked. "No," he said quietly. "They trusted me." The word trust hung heavy. Judge Judy nodded once. "And when homeowners appealed?" "I handled those too." "And oversight?" she asked. He exhaled through his nose. There wasn't much. The homeowner stood silently, watching the unraveling with a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion. Not triumph. Recognition. Judge Judy folded her hands. "So when residents challenged you," she said, "there was no independent review." He shook his head. "No appeal panel," she continued. "No mediation." "No," he said again. Judge Judy's gaze softened, not with mercy, but with clarity. "That means every escalation," she said, "every penalty increase, every lien threat came from you." The HOA president looked up now, eyes glassy. Someone had to make decisions. "Yes," Judge Judy replied, but no one challenged them. The room absorbed that truth slowly. He shifted in his seat, running a hand down his face. "You don't understand what it's like," he said quietly. "Everyone complains. Everyone thinks they're special." Judge Judy did not argue. "And when no one pushes back," she said, "power forgets its limits." The gallery remained silent. No murmurs this time. Just attention. Judge Judy glanced toward the homeowner. "You felt isolated," she said. "Yes," the homeowner answered, "like I was the problem." Judge Judy nodded. Then she turned back to him. "That's what unchecked authority does," she said. "It convinces people they're alone." The HOA president stared at the floor. "I didn't think it would get this far." Judge Judy's voice was calm but firm. "It always does." She paused, letting the words settle. "When power answers only to itself," she continued, "it mistakes silence for agreement." The HOA president's shoulders sagged. The room could feel it now, the moment he realized there was no one left to stand behind him. No board, no policy shield, no audience to perform for, just accountability. Judge Judy picked up her pen. "Before we continue," she said, "there's something I want everyone watching to consider." She looked out briefly, not breaking immersion but acknowledging the weight of the moment. Pause and think. When someone in authority says they're just doing their job, where does responsibility actually live? One name can hold more power than a room full of voices. Judge Judy turned the folder toward herself again, slower this time, as if giving the moment the gravity it deserved. The HOA president watched her hands, his eyes following every movement like a needle tracking a fault line. "You've said this was your job," she began, "that someone had to make decisions." He nodded. "That's right. So let's be very clear about which decisions were yours," she said. She lifted a single page from the file and held it just high enough for him to see. A familiar document. He recognized it instantly. The standard authorization form, the one he had signed hundreds of times without thinking. "This approval," Judge Judy said, tapping the bottom of the page, "is dated April 14th. He swallowed. "Yes." "And this one," she continued, sliding another page beside it. April 28th. She placed a third. May 12th. Each tap landed like a metronome counting down something final. All of these escalations, she said calmly, carry your signature. The homeowner's eyes widened slightly. The HOA president shifted in his seat. That's normal. I was authorized to sign. Judge Judy nodded once. Authorized, she agreed, not obligated. He frowned. I don't see the distinction. That's the problem, she replied. She leaned forward, resting her forearms on the desk. A signature isn't just ink, she said. It's judgment. It says you looked at the situation and decided escalation was appropriate. He opened his mouth to argue, then hesitated. You didn't delegate this, she continued. You didn't automate it. You chose it. The gallery was silent now. No murmurs, no shifting. Everyone understood what was being laid bare. Judge Judy turned to the homeowner. Did you ever speak directly with him? She asked. The homeowner nodded. Once, after the second fine. And what happened? Judge Judy asked. They told me if I kept pushing, it would get worse. The HOA president snapped his head up. That's not what I said. Judge Judy raised a hand gently. You'll get your turn. She looked back at the homeowner. And then? Then it did, they said quietly. Judge Judy exhaled slowly through her nose. Interesting. She turned back to him. You know what makes signatures powerful? She asked. They're traceable. He stared at her. You can blame policy, she continued. You can blame systems. You can blame boards. She tapped the page again. But this, she said, comes back to you. The HOA president's voice dropped. I was trying to maintain order. Judge Judy's tone did not change. Order without fairness is just pressure. He rubbed his hands together, restless. If I hadn't enforced, people would walk all over the HOA. And if you enforce without listening, she replied, you walk over people. The homeowner closed their eyes briefly, as if hearing that distinction for the first time. Judge Judy gathered the documents and aligned them neatly. This is why oversight matters, she said. Because when power funnels through one signature, accountability does too. She looked directly at him now. You didn't just approve fines, she said. You approved fear. The words hung heavy. The HOA president looked down at his hands, at the place where the pen had rested so many times. For the first time, he seemed to realize what that name at the bottom of the page truly meant. Judge Judy closed the folder. And we're not done, she said quietly, because the weight of that signature was about to pull everything else down with it. This was never about rules. Judge Judy did not open the folder again. She left it closed, her hand resting lightly on top as if the truth no longer needed paper to stand upright. The courtroom sensed it too, that quiet shift when facts give way to meaning. You've explained how you did it, she said calmly. You've explained why you thought you could. The HOA president looked up slowly, eyes tired now, guarded. I did what I had to. Judge Judy tilted her head slightly. No, she replied. You did what you wanted. The words landed softly and cut deeper than accusation. He shook his head, a reflex more than a response. That's not fair. Judge Judy leaned forward. Let's talk about fairness, she said. You escalated fastest with homeowners who questioned you. That's not true, he said automatically. She did not challenge him right away. Instead, she turned to the homeowner. When you appealed, she asked gently, what were you really asking for? The homeowner swallowed. To be heard. Judge Judy nodded once. Then she looked back at him. And what did you hear? He hesitated. Too long. I heard defiance, he said finally. Disrespect. There it was. The room seemed to exhale all at once. Judge Judy's voice remained even. You didn't punish violations, she said. You punished challenge. His jaw tightened. People can't just push authority. Authority, she replied, that fears being questioned is already weak. He looked away, running a hand over his face. The fight was gone now, replaced by something raw. You know what this case is really about? Judge Judy asked. He did not answer. It's about ego, she continued. About mistaking position for identity. The homeowner watched, tears pooling but not falling. Not yet. Judge Judy stood the silence up between them. You weren't enforcing rules to protect a community, she said. You were enforcing obedience to protect yourself. The HOA president's breath caught. That's not... You told this homeowner, she interrupted gently, that things would get worse if they kept pushing. He froze. Judge Judy did not raise her voice. That wasn't policy, she said. That was intimidation. The word echoed. The HOA president slumped back in his chair. The last layer of performance peeled away. I just wanted them to stop, he said quietly. Everyone was questioning me, complaining, making me look incompetent. Judge Judy nodded slowly. And instead of listening, she said, you tightened your grip. The homeowner wiped at their eyes, stunned, not by victory, but by recognition. Judge Judy leaned back. This is the core truth, she said. Not paperwork, not bylaws. She met his eyes. You used authority to silence insecurity. The room was completely still now. Judge Judy paused, long enough for the truth to settle into every corner. And once that happens, she added quietly, justice stops being blind. She closed the folder at last. The twist wasn't the evidence, it was the motive, and nothing he could say now would change what that revealed. Silence does not rush to fill a room after truth lands, it waits. The HOA president sat very still now, hands folded loosely in front of him, no longer gripping anything for balance. The posture of authority was gone. What remained was a man exposed, not humiliated, not theatrical, just stripped of excuses. Judge Judy allowed the quiet to stretch. This was not punishment, it was consequence. You've said enough, she said finally, her voice softer but no less firm. Now you need to listen. He nodded once, slowly. Judge Judy turned her attention to the homeowner. You've stood here through all of this, she said. What has this process taken from you? The homeowner hesitated, then let out a breath they had clearly been holding for months. Sleep, they said quietly. Peace. I started checking my phone every time the mail came. I was scared I'd lose my home over a fence. The words settled like dust after a collapse. Judge Judy nodded. That fear, she said, is not incidental. It matters. The HOA president closed his eyes briefly, as if the weight of it had finally found him. You hear that? Judge Judy asked him. Yes, he replied hoarsely. For the first time? She asked. He did not answer right away. Then, quietly. Yes. The courtroom felt different now. Not tense, reflective. The kind of stillness that follows an emotional reckoning rather than a fight. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. When authority loses empathy, she said, it creates damage it never accounts for. The homeowner wiped their face, steadying themselves. There was no anger in their expression anymore, just exhaustion and relief at being seen. Judge Judy turned back to the HOA president. You weren't prepared for this moment, she said. Not because you lacked intelligence, but because you never imagined being questioned. He nodded again, slower this time. I thought control meant respect, he admitted. I didn't realize how small it made people feel. Judge Judy held his gaze. That realization, she said, is the line between power and responsibility. The gallery remained silent. No whispers, no reactions. Everyone understood they were witnessing the collapse phase, the moment after denial, before judgment. Judge Judy gathered the papers one last time, aligning them neatly. This courtroom is not here to shame you, she said. It's here to correct harm. She paused. And harm was done. The HOA president looked down, his voice barely audible. I see that now. Judge Judy nodded once. Good, she said. Because accountability starts after the mask falls, not before. She glanced at the homeowner, then back at him. What happens next, she added, will matter far beyond this room. The silence returned, not heavy, not sharp, final. And as Judge Judy prepared to speak again, everyone in the courtroom understood something fundamental. The case had moved past exposure. Now came consequence. Justice does not need to shout when the truth has already spoken. Judge Judy sat upright now, hands folded neatly on the desk, posture calm and deliberate. The room felt steady, not tense, not expectant, but settled, as if everyone instinctively understood that the storm had already passed and this was the quiet afterward. "This is not a complicated ruling," she began. Her voice was even, controlled, no edge, no fire. The HOA president lifted his head slightly, eyes fixed forward. He did not interrupt, he did not fidget. The man who once filled the room with noise had learned that silence was no longer his enemy, it was his reckoning. "You had authority," Judge Judy continued, "and with it, discretion." She paused, letting the word breathe. "You chose enforcement over evaluation, escalation over conversation." The homeowner stood motionless, barely breathing. Judge Judy turned her gaze toward them. "You complied when you could," she said. "You asked questions when you could not. You did what people are supposed to do in a functioning system." She shifted her attention back to him. "And you treated that as defiance." The HOA president swallowed. "This court does not exist to dismantle HOAs," Judge Judy said calmly. "They serve a purpose when they operate with balance." She leaned forward slightly. "But when rules become instruments of intimidation, they stop being governance." The gallery remained completely silent. Not a single chair shifted. Judge Judy picked up her pen but did not write yet. "You were warned," she said. "Formally, documented. A chance was given." Her eyes lifted. "You chose not to change." The HOA president nodded faintly. No denial, no defense. Judge Judy finally wrote a single line, then set the pen down. "The fines levied against this homeowner," she said, "are reversed in full." The homeowner's shoulders sagged, relief rushing through them in a way that needed no sound. "Any late fees, penalties, or threats of lien associated with those fines," Judge Judy continued, "are void." She paused, then added, "And you will reimburse court costs." The HOA president accepted it with a quiet nod. "But this does not end here," Judge Judy said. She looked directly at him. "This case will be formally referred for further review." No drama, no emphasis, just fact. "You do not lose authority today," she said. "You lose the illusion that it belongs to you alone." The words landed clean and final. Judge Judy straightened, her tone reflective now. "Power," she said, "is measured by restraint, respect by listening, and leadership by accountability." She looked once more at the homeowner. "You should never have been made to feel small for asking to be treated fairly." Then she returned her gaze to him. "And you should remember how easily that happens when no one speaks up." The gavel rested beneath her hand. She did not strike it yet. Because the judgment had already been delivered, not with volume, but with clarity. And everyone in the courtroom felt it. The gavel rested in Judge Judy's hand. She did not rush to bring it down. The courtroom remained perfectly still, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Everything that needed to be said had already been spoken, every excuse dismantled, every truth exposed. Judge Judy looked at the HOA president one last time. He did not meet her gaze right away. When he finally did, there was no defiance left to hide behind, no smirk, no posture, just a man sitting with the full weight of what his authority had done and what it had cost him. "This case is closed," Judge Judy said quietly. She brought the gavel down. The sound was soft, almost restrained, but it carried farther than any raised voice ever could. The HOA president gathered his papers slowly, not frantically, not angrily. Each movement felt deliberate now, as if he were afraid of making any more mistakes. The confidence he'd walked in with stayed behind on the courtroom floor. The homeowner exhaled deeply, a breath they hadn't realized they'd been holding for months. Their shoulders relaxed for the first time all day. Not in triumph, in relief. As they turned to leave, Judge Judy's voice stopped them. "Remember this," she said, her tone calm, reflective. "You were never wrong for asking to be treated fairly." The homeowner nodded, eyes shining, and walked out lighter than they had entered. The HOA president followed behind, slower, quieter. No one watched him go. The audience's attention had already shifted. not to him, but to the lesson he left behind. Judge Judy remained seated for a moment after the room began to empty. She looked down at the closed folder on her desk, then pushed it aside gently. Power, she knew, rarely announces its downfall. It reveals it, in moments like this, when silence becomes the loudest verdict of all. The camera would linger on the empty chair where arrogance once sat, on the desk where truth had finally settled, on the quiet order restored, not by control, but by accountability. Because in the end, justice did not need applause, it only needed the truth, and the truth once spoken speaks for itself.